Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in.
Well, hello. Welcome to Monday with the Market Mystics. Kim, Christmas is just 2 days away. Can you even believe it?
I cannot even believe it. Not even a little bit. Do you have any big plans?
No, just spending some time with family. Something that has become a family tradition is on Christmas Eve to put on Christmas PJs and watch a Christmas movie with some hot chocolate. That has sort of become a family tradition. But really, I would say our family doesn't really have a lot of set traditions that we do. Like, there's been things we've done for years that one year we're just like, oh yeah, we'll just do something different. um, and so it's like, it's not super, there's not a lot of like structure. It's just really just being with each other is what most people enjoy. And so I don't think we're actually traveling anywhere this year. At least not on the week of Christmas. So yeah, I think I'm excited for it.
That's good. Really good.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I want to as it is almost Christmas, you and I have talked several times about our about Christmas and about our journeys with Christmas and being more involved with it, less involved with it, um, having beliefs about the origins of it and not. And that's not really what I want to talk about this time, but something I've been learning a lot about lately, which this connects to the last episode that we had. Towards the end of it, we started talking about just like the simplicity of things.
Mhm.
And um, I've just been learning like about knowledge and the pursuit of knowledge and um kind of like even studying a little bit of like Solomon. So Solomon is widely known as being the wisest man who's ever lived, the wealthiest man who's ever lived. Um, maybe the man with the most wives. I don't know. Um, but uh, he, is famous for asking God for wisdom, which God gives him. And then he proceeds to go pursue the wisdom of the world and um, and a bunch of mystery religions and esoteric knowledge and like ends up being more or less completely derailed because he's pursuing the wisdom of other nations. And then towards the end of his life, he writes, I've gained all this and it was all pointless. And I wonder sometimes. Um, I heard a long time ago Joseph Prince teach a sermon on the word that's used when Solomon asks for wisdom. And the way he taught it was, I've heard people teach us many different ways, but the way he taught it was that the word meant like an abiding presence that in every moment he would have a leading of which way to go. That is essentially what he asked for, according to this sermon that I heard. Um, and I think that rings true to the way that Father gives wisdom. I've not experienced Father as giving massive, crazy, deep knowledge on all sorts of things, whether I needed it or not. I've experienced him giving me the next step and then the next step and then the next step, like
Mhm.
leading me, not giving me a whole bunch of knowledge all at once. Um, and I just have to wonder if that isn't what God gave Solomon, And then Solomon was like, yeah, but I see these other people doing this stuff and they're just doing what they want to do. How do I get that knowledge? And so he starts pursuing it because the knowledge God gave him, wisdom God gave him, wasn't enough. Um, and so I started thinking about that in my journey of Christmas things and really deep diving, pursuing like the pagan origins of a lot of the rituals that we do at Christmas time and like getting really hung up at one point of time on the fact that Jesus wasn't born in on December 25th or in December or in
You're like, I've
November
been
or
lied to.
October. Like, yeah. Um, and like really getting caught up on like going to Christmas services and being like, I know more than you. Like, and this year I've like been learning this stuff about Solomon, and all of a sudden I'm thinking about Christmas and I'm like, I don't want to say all that stuff I learned was pointless, but all I had to do was listen to the leading of the Father. If he didn't
Mhm.
want me to celebrate Christmas, I didn't have to. If he wanted me to celebrate Christmas, I could. And like, I don't think that he gets hung up on the fact that we celebrate Jesus's birthday in December when it very much so likely was in a completely different part of the year. Like, I don't know that he gets nearly as hung up on that as
Mhm.
I have. And so I just started thinking about like the simplicity with which the gospel truly is. Like, the gospel is an invitation to a simple life, a led life, which we've talked about, but like a led life where you are in relationship with someone who you put your trust in that they're going to take care of you, that their ways are higher than your ways, that their thoughts are higher than your thoughts, and they know more. And so you
Mhm.
put your trust that they will lead you in a direction that ultimately will be for your best benefit. And then you sit back and say, okay, here I am. What do you want me to do? And so I'm thinking about just like the invitation of the simple gospel and Christmas time and how I have way overcomplicated Christmas time and way overcomplicated just life in general out of a pursuit of knowledge when really the invitation the whole way is, can you just walk beside me? Can we be friends?
Yeah, I think that's good. But I also want to challenge what you said a little bit.
Sure.
Sorry, Josh. Merry Christmas.
Do it.
So this is what I was thinking, like, because I went through something very similar around a similar time. Like a lot of us who were walking pretty closely with one another kind of really dove into some of that at the same time.
Hmm.
But I tend to think, well, I tend to believe that he's the one who led me to learn about some of this. And for the purpose of untethering and unwinding some of the just following because everybody follows.
Mm.
And for me, I think this actually does go back to what you're talking about, even with the wisdom, like um, that abiding presence that you said. Like, I think that's what it is. Like, it's abiding in his presence, in relationship with him, in communion with him. And when I say communion, I mean like the same word that's at the root of community. Like it is a back and forth exchanging of life,
Mm.
right? Um, but when you do that, sometimes he does lead you to look at stuff. And do we overcomplicate it? Yes, absolutely. For sure. I mean, I don't know how many times we've talked about stuff on this that is wildly overcomplicated, and then we just get drawn back into the simplicity.
Mm.
But I think the important part of it is always coming back to that relationship and allowing that to be what leads you. And I think that's super important, is being led by that, because then it doesn't have to be terribly complicated. Even when he leads you to do something that is outside of the box, or that kind of goes against the norms or whatever, it might feel a bit complicated because it's not in the same pathways you're used to going.
Mm.
But so many times I think it has to do with forging forward and getting into that ideal that he has for you, where you can sit back and really trust that he's leading you in the way you need to go. Right. And so I think sometimes the outworking can be complicated, but I think it's for the sake of the simplicity.
Yeah.
What do you think? Did that feel like a challenge?
Well, I was just gonna say I'm gonna challenge your challenge
Yes.
by saying that I don't think you actually challenged it, because you started it by saying I was led to learn about it. So I think that's my point. Like, if he leads you to learn deep and complicated things, I don't think that that is outside the realm of possibility. um I'll just speak for myself. Like, when I started going down the rabbit hole of the weirdness of Christmas, like, I probably spent 20 or 30 hours, like, deep diving, investigating some of the things, and like, for maybe even more than that, because it was over a span of a couple Christmases, like, really diving into it. Um and maybe was I led to, like, learn some of the things just so I wasn't as attached? Probably. But did I then take it way past where I was led to be? Probably.
Probably,
Like,
yeah.
I think that's like where my mind is with it. Like, it's not that he can't take you on a journey of learning complicated things, but I think he opened the door and I was like, whoa, I'm gonna run in here as fast as I can. And he's like, oh, I'm back on aisle one.
That's funny. You know what I think? Sometimes when we do that, when we like get a little overzealous, I think that's when those pieces of, you mentioned this, like going to the Christmas services and being like, I know more than you know. I
Mm,
think that's where that kind of stuff starts coming out and bubbling over, because I don't think he leads us to the things to be haughty.
right, right, exactly.
Right? Like,
Right.
I'm not saying this against you, because I've been
Yeah.
in similar places, and then I've been really corrected out of those places too.
Yeah.
Sometimes he lets me sit there and like really think that I'm the most brilliant person on the planet, and then he like slowly eases me like, oh, but look at all of these other things too that are still truth, you know?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think, honestly, when I rush into the store and he's on aisle one, I think he just smiles and laughs. Like, I don't think it's like a, at least in general, I don't think that it's like a devastating thing. I think he's like,
Yeah.
oh, he's gonna learn the hard way.
Mhm. Or he's like, okay, let's let him get this out of his system and then we'll move on
Yeah.
and we'll keep going, but we'll still be in aisle one.
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
And you
It is so sweet.
circle back around the whole store, and you're like, oh, you're still right here. And he's like, yeah, I'm right here. And he's like, oh, did you see this on the shelf? It's like, oh, no. Like, yeah, I think that's how he does it. He just waits for us to get our energy out. Like, as a new puppy owner, like, sometimes I just got to wait until, like, he's not going to do training until he gets his energy out sometimes. So sometimes he's got to run around crazy for a minute, and then he can sit and learn. And I
Mm,
do the exact same thing.
that's funny. I was thinking about this concept of the abiding presence, and this concept of what you're just laying out with like running around a store,
Mm,
and how it's an interesting thing that if we can stay in that abiding presence, how he can lead us through every aisle and point out everything that he wants us to see. Um, but I also think there are times when it's important to go explore, but you still have like that tethering eye on him. I think about my children and like they're a little older now, but when they're young and we go to a store, I want them to be holding my hand or be in the cart with me or have a hand on the cart, something. But also when there's a little more freedom given, often I'm like, I just need you to be where I can see you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to be touching, we don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
exactly in the same place, but I you need to be able to see me and I need to be able to see you. And I think some of that is still really true with even exploring the things that are in the world that aren't like 100% his voice all the time. I think a good example is Josh, we have this book that we were reading for years,
Uh-huh. True.
right? It super heavy, uh, lots of wild spiritual things in it. And I remember it being so important when we were reading that to really be reading it fully with him because he would indicate like on every word of every sentence on every page like this is for you, this is not for you, this is for you, this is not for you. And how important it was to do that because it was so outside of the lines
Mm.
of what was like normally taught. Remember this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then also I'm in a place where I don't know for how long. It's probably been the last 8 or 9 8 or 9 years maybe when I mean the Lord really had me back off from having outside teachers. And he's like, "No, I want to be the one to teach you." Right? Like you don't need to listen to other teachers. I have exactly what I need to show you. And all of a sudden I find myself right now currently in this space where there's a little more breadth to go out and he's encouraging me to learn from other teachers,
Mm.
except that I don't think it is too dissimilar from my kids going and being able to be somewhere else, but still having their eyes on me, you know? And
Yeah.
to
You
me, I
first
guess,
have to learn to walk through the store holding the cart.
right. And I think this is maybe it seems really different, but I see like what a simple concept it is. And I know that it's not directly the gospel, but I see such simplicity in the relationship that he has and like wants to have with us. And you can make it complicated if you want, but just like you were talking about, I really do think this is the simple thing. It is simply relationship. It is simply abiding in his presence. And I don't know if you know this, but to abide in someone's presence, you don't have to be talking all the time.
Mm.
You don't even have to
Yeah.
be interacting all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You just are there. And I
Mhm.
would say you're there, but even if you're not talking or touching or interacting, there's a connectedness that abiding implies. Like there's a, it's not a, it's not a, you're in the same room as someone, but there's no connection with them. Like
Right.
it's not that either, but it is a, you're in the same room with someone and you can feel them and you're tuned into them. And if they like shuffle in their seat, you're like, oh, are we going somewhere? Like you like are aware of that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
So Josh, did I just overcomplicate your simple message?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think my goal this Christmas is just to be as simple as I can and enjoy what I can and be led where I can. And yeah, to not overcomplicate it, to not get hung up on the Jesus is the reason for the season crap. It's, I don't know that it's really crap. It really annoyed me for a while when I was like, we are doing this totally wrong.
I know. I get that. I was the same way, but I am now back in a place where I'm like, yeah, give me all the Jesus songs. Like I want to I want to hear "Oh Little Town of Bethlehem" and I
Yeah,
want to hear "Oh Holy Night" and I might put it on repeat a couple times and like
yeah, yeah,
I don't want Jingle Bell Rock so much,
yeah, yeah.
And so it's an interesting thing how full circle this can be and um yeah, I feel life in it again, but it has shifted. It's transformed from what it was. It
Mhm.
wasn't just the presents and the Santa Claus and the reindeer and the snowmen and the uh midnight church service and it wasn't those things. Like it feels way more personal now. And it feels way more intentional now because I'm actually choosing to do this. It was
Mhm.
taken away for a while, but there was the option to pick it up again, and I have chosen to pick it up again. And that actually feels really freeing, um, because it's not just something that's been put on us, you know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
I
right.
I don't know if you feel that way, but it's like, no, I'm actively choosing this,
Mm,
and there's a wide open door to be able to choose it.
right. Yeah, and when you are choosing something, you're able to choose it and make it the way you wanna make it instead of following, like, culture and just saying, "Well, this is how Christmas is celebrated. This is how this holiday is celebrated." Like, you're able to pick and choose. Like, if you are choosing, you're able to say, "Okay, I'm gonna do this, but not this," or, "I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do it this way." Like, there's so
Yeah.
many different layers to it um, of those things, and I just think that that makes it, um that totally changes how it is. It just changes it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
For sure. I also want to point out before we wrap this, and get
Ah,
it's a
put
Christmas
a bow
episode,
on it.
that we're also a couple days away from Hanukkah,
We are.
which I also really love, and I don't know, I really honor those traditions too. So that was a fun thing when, at least for me, when I put down Christmas, I learned a lot more about the Jewish feasts,
Mm.
and like it's a fun one.
Yeah, it's one of the best.
I know, and they happen to start on the same day this year. Like day one of
Amazing.
Hanukkah is the same as Christmas. So that's super cool too.
There's gotta be some mystical significance to that.
I bet there is. I bet if we were to seek it, we would find it.
You might be right. It's awesome. Well, listeners, Merry Christmas. Thank you for being on this journey with us. Happy Hanukkah. Um, it's our joy and honor to walk with you, and I hope you guys feel that same way. Leave us some comments. Let us know ways that you have been led. Let us know your favorite Christmas tradition or Hanukkah tradition or just holiday tradition.
Indeed. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for listening. Keep up with us along this journey by liking, subscribing, and becoming a member through YouTube.
Members get exclusive access to bonus content with our guests, deeper dives into topics, and a look into other projects. We're glad to have you here. See you next time.